provides air conditioning to the offices across the hall. So we had a few guys come out and give us estimates for just replacing the condenser, or the compressor, versus replacing the whole system. At this point, Steve recommends just replacing the compressor, but then he was explaining to me that we have 2 units out there. There's one unit that serves this room, and then the one that serves the other side. Supposedly, one of the contractors that came said that the unit that serves this room is big. It's like bigger than it needs to be to serve this room. And so then the question came up, well, could we just use that unit and like adjust the ductwork so that it did both rooms? I don't know if either of you know much about that.
So this room, that unit may be larger because if this room is full of people,
Right,
did
but
you
it's,
factor that in?
no,
Okay.
no, and we haven't done anything except just sort of like brainstorm and be like, well, wait a second, if we have one unit that could potentially serve both sides, does it make sense just to adjust the ductwork so that it serves both sides? Or we can just get
But it's
the,
probably sized for the heat load of having people here. It's
Probably.
Probably what it's sized for.
yeah, but we rarely have that though,
But then-
is my thought.
With the other renovations coming in, that's something else to factor.
Exactly.
As well as, I don't know how old the units are, but
They're not
depending.
that old.
Okay, what I was
So,
getting at is
yeah.
depending on the refrigerant that they use, like I had a unit go, I had to replace the whole thing because the refrigerant wouldn't, you couldn't,
Yeah,
it was the older refrigerant stuff,
gotcha.
but depending.
So they seem to think that the compressor could be replaced and it would still function. They say, I think it's from 2014, so it's not
Okay.
that old.
Yeah, it's not that old.
And they said that the reason that it's,
2014 is not gonna be the 401.
No, it's gonna be, I think, 134A. But anyway, what was the warranty on these things? This is another question to ask.
I'm not sure, I can check.
Usually it's 5 years commercial.
Okay.
You
So,
usually get 10 years residential, 5 years commercial.
so if you want, so I think replacing the compressor is about $2,000. So if you want, we can just move forward with that, and not worry about looking into the ductwork and all of that. We're hesitant to recommend replacing it entirely because of the work that's gonna be done potentially on the
Yeah.
building. So we'd like to kind of go with the most cost effective. I mean, if you're okay, we could have some, Steve did say that the ductwork up there, one contractor said it's a mess. It's all crisscrossed and everything, so, so that's.
And then trying to get the proper airflow over to the other side out of the
Yeah.
ductwork here could be interesting.
Could be
And
interesting, so it
balancing
might be
everything
just
else.
worth it, just
Yeah.
doing the compressor.
This way you can actually balance the building too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay, all right. So why don't we just go ahead and stick with the compressor and then we'll,
That's the best way to go.
okay. All right, we'll just do that. Okay, update on 744 Preagenda Road. So I did go and walk the property with the owner's daughter, who I've been dealing with because the owners are elderly and they had COVID at the time, so there was no visiting with them. So they weren't thrilled with the appraisal, estimate that we provided. And I explained, to them up front that, it's not based on development. So she indicated that there are 5 children. And if somehow they could get 5 lots on the remaining portion, then they would be more open to conversation about possibly selling us the back portion. And I said, well, I don't know if that's feasible. It might be. So I said to her, I will come talk to you guys, and if you would like, I can sit down with Norm and we can just kind of take a little time and brainstorm and see if there's even a feasible alternative to make that work. The other piece of this, walking that property with her, is it's a really steep drop down to the creek. So the idea of any sort of public works facility back there, I don't think is practical. I mean, it's a good crossing, and it's steep up to there. You know, it drops down to the creek and then it comes back up to their property. So I don't think that property is anything we would be interested in doing any sort of public works facility on. So then it's a question of, are you interested in it for open space for the township? I mean, it's a nice property, could have some nice trails, but I don't know if that's something you want to pursue at this point.
I think,
So,
yeah, we could talk about it again next week,
mhm.
okay, but my gut says that if it's not gonna serve the purpose of that public works idea, I would question if it would be good use of funds.
Okay, yeah.
I'm with you at this point.
So maybe we just don't pursue it. The other thing is, I think part of this planning process will be helpful because we can do some long-term planning for public works and figure out if we can accommodate what they need here in this area. Because we can push their space back maybe 40 feet. So I think we need to sit down with Steve and really have him lay out exactly what he needs to do, or be able to do. I know the big thing is getting those millings out of Wayland Park and that shaker buddy thing out of there. So, his other concern is when they have like spoils and trees and things like that, where to put that kind of stuff. So that's really kind of his big issue. Part of this planning process, we need to look at the restrictions on this property. So I did find one plan of the property that seemed to show a boundary around the municipal building in the public works area. And I think we may be limited to having to stay within that boundary, but I need to look into that further. And I think that's because county open space funds were used to buy a lot of the surrounding lands. So if that's the case, we really can't expand into those areas, and so we need to decide if we can accommodate everything we need to do in our boundary. So that'll be part of that planning process and kind of figuring all that out. Okay. All right, so at this point, I guess, are you thinking just we won't really pursue it,
No.
that property? Now, I will say that on the other side of where the trail is, there's a vacant home at the front, and it's a long skinny parcel that goes back to the creek as well, and it's a flat field. That seems more practical, if we're looking for kind of a remote storage space for public works. I think the back of that property would probably be more worth looking
And I'm sorry,
into.
what did you say, what was the condition of that property?
So the house, it's just on the other side of 3211
He's
here.
supposed to be renovating that to actually rent it out.
Okay, but it's a long
It
skinny
is.
parcel that goes all the way back, and I don't know if they'd be willing to sell the back portion of that property, because that might be a more feasible alternative for maybe some of the storage, but I don't know if that's something they'd be interested in having over there, so that's the tricky part too. Okay. Let's see, so staffing changes, at some point, I would like to talk about some staffing changes in executive session.
Okay.
We can do it tonight or we can wait, it's not a
So-
high priority.
If it's not a high priority, let's just do it next week.
Okay, yeah, I know the storm is bad tonight. Okay, announcements, Saturday is the Swamp Creek Stomp.
The mud swamp.
The mud, yeah,
Yeah.
it's gonna be a muddy mess.
Yes.
And then you guys do have your conditional use hearing scheduled for April 20th. I will tell you I have a conflict now, so I'm not gonna be able to make it, but the solicitor is the one who runs the hearing, so I will have all the information to him. Planning Commission did make a recommendation, I think I forgot to pull it off the printer, but I will, provide that. They had a really good discussion of it and, came up with some good recommendations for conditions, so
Okay.
I think that's it. All right.
All right.
And that's, I'll just say that hearing is at St. Luke's across the street.
Okay. Anything else?
I'm good.
All right, then I will make a motion to adjourn our meeting. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Okay.